Ever wondered what it's like to meet an SCP up close? These stories dive into the freakiest face-offs on record. The Hunter's Cabin, Montana, Bitterroot Wilderness. Deep in the Bitterroot Mountains of western Montana, surrounded by dense pine forests and fog-choked valleys, a seasoned hunter named Caleb Rowe retreated to his remote cabin for a week of solitude. He was experienced, a former tracker, well-versed in the rhythms of the wild. He knew the sounds animals make and how they moved. But what he encountered in the woods wasn't natural. Caleb first noticed it on the second day. A deer, tall, pale, and unusually still. Also clean, too clean, as if it had just taken a bath. This is unusual for any creature in the wild. It was standing at the edge of a clearing near his cabin. It didn't graze, typical behavior for a deer. It didn't twitch. It just stood there, staring. He watched it for over 6 hours. It never moved. When he finally approached, the deer turned its head, not like an animal, but like a person, slowly, deliberately. Its eyes were too wide, too dark, and they didn't blink. That night, Caleb didn't sleep. He was seen on the cabin's perimeter cameras, wandering the woods, barefoot, muttering to himself. The footage shows him circling the same tree, over and over, whispering something unintelligible. By morning, he was gone. A week went by, and he began to miss appointments, very unlike him. The town grew concerned and contacted local authorities. They found him back inside the cabin, dead. No signs of trauma, no struggle, just a frozen look of terror on his face. His journal was open on the table. The last entry read, "The eyes don't blink. They never blink. They're staring. They're still watching." The deer was never found. But the trail cams captured one final image. The same figure, standing in the clearing, facing the cabin, still, silent, waiting. Locals were told it was a bear attack, but those who live near the forests knew better. They still speak of the deer that doesn't run, that doesn't move, the one that watches, the one that waits. It doesn't chase you, it doesn't roar, it just stands there until you're alone. The satellite breach incident. Earth's orbit. A Foundation satellite captured SCP-096's face during a routine atmospheric scan. The image was automatically transmitted to a technician aboard an orbital research capsule, a secure, isolated environment hundreds of kilometers above Earth. What happened next is still classified, but fragments of the footage were leaked during a containment audit. The footage begins with the technician reviewing data logs. He's calm, focused. Then the screen behind him flickers, just for a second. A distorted image, a face. He barely sees it for a fraction of a second. But for just there, that is an eternity. Out of nowhere, no warning, no breach alarm. SCP-096 appears inside the capsule. There's no sign of entry, no hull breach, it's just there. The technician turns, his eyes widen. He doesn't even have time to scream. 096 tears through the capsule like it's made of paper. The technician is dismembered in seconds, his body unrecognizable. Then suddenly, it stops. It sits. It covers its face. It waits. It cries. Subject neutralized. Capsule recovery in progress is heard over the radio. To this day, no one knows how SCP-096 reached the capsule. There's no breaches at site redacted. The site is classified. No atmospheric entry detected. No damage to the capsule's exterior. It simply appeared as if the rules of space, time, and physics do not apply. And maybe they don't for this monster. The Desert Massacre, Sahara region, North Africa. A small documentary crew, 3 filmmakers, and a local guide were traveling through the edge of the Sahara Desert. Their goal? To capture the haunting beauty of the dunes, the silence of the sand, and the stories of nomadic tribes. They checked into a modest hotel on the outskirts of a desert town. A quiet, sun-bleached building with cracked tiles, humming ceiling fans, and a rooftop that overlooked the endless horizon, ran by an older man named Yusef. The crew left early in the morning, taking only their cameras, water, and a drone. When they returned that evening, while enjoying themselves at dinner with ale, Yusef heard them mention a strange sighting. They once again departed early the next morning, leaving some footage in their room. But they didn't return. 3 days passed. The hotel manager, Yusef, grew concerned. The room was untouched. Their beds still made. Their air conditioner still humming. On the 4th day, he entered their room. What he found was chilling. There was footage that begins with sweeping drone shots at the dunes. Then a figure appears in the distance, thin, pale, standing motionless in the heat shimmer. The camera zooms in, just for a second, a blurry face, then static. The next frames are corrupted, but the audio remains. Heavy breathing, something tearing, something wet. The Foundation recovered the footage, but didn't dare watch it. They only know about it from Yusef's account. SCP did the only action they could think of and quarantined the hotel. They sealed Yusef in a room. Despite this, Yusef was found dead the next day, ripped limb from limb, no sign of entry. The room was still sealed. SCP covered this up, declaring a restriction zone due to unexploded ordnance, but the footage still remains in SCP archives. A reminder that SCP-096 doesn't care where you are, a mountain, a capsule, or the middle of nowhere. If you see its face, it will find you. It will kill you. Now that you know the lore, here are some stories I heard about. Oh, why am I whispering? Do you know what the SCP would do to me if they found out that I'm leaking this info to you? I mean, where do you think all the Class D test subjects come from? They're not all felons, you know, like you're led to believe. So make sure you like the video and subscribe, because, I'm risking everything here, and I don't know when I'm going to get caught. The Mirror Room Test. Site 13, Sublevel D. In an effort to better understand SCP-096's visual trigger mechanism, the Foundation authorized a control experiment deep within Site 13. In a sublevel known only to Level 4 personnel, the room was custom built, a 10 by 10 meter chamber, lined wall to wall with one-way mirrors. Behind each mirror was a reinforced observation booth equipped with high-speed cameras, biometric sensors, and emergency lockdown systems. At the center of the room stood a single chair, a D-class subject, D-9341, who was instructed to sit and observe a distorted, heavily pixelated image of SCP-096's face. The image was projected onto a mirrored panel designed to reflect and refract the image in unpredictable ways. For the first 90 seconds, nothing happened. The subject reported mild discomfort. Then, at 2 minutes and 12 seconds exactly, his heart rate spiked. He began to sweat. He whispered, "I think it's looking at me." At 2 minutes and 47 seconds, the subject froze as if paralyzed by sheer terror. The room fell silent. At exactly 3 minutes and 4 seconds, 096 breached containment. It tore through 3 containment doors, bypassed 2 security checkpoints, and reached the mirror room in under 90 seconds. The mirrors shattered on impact, not from physical force, but from sheer shockwave of its entry. The subject was ripped limb from limb. A total of 17 pieces were counted. The mirrors were fused with organic tissue. The observation booths were untouched, but every researcher inside had suffered temporary blindness and auditory hallucinations. The room was sealed. The experiment never repeated. And the image, it was deleted. But some say it still exists, buried deep in the Foundation's black archives, labeled only as "Do Not View." The scientists that survived seeing SCP-096's face, site redacted. SCP-96 is contained in a pressure-sealed, lightless steel cube, monitored only by audio sensors. No cameras, no mirrors, no windows. Personnel are forbidden from viewing any images of SCP-096's face. All photographs are immediately redacted or destroyed. There's a story buried deep in the Foundation's restricted archives, one that's been redacted, reclassified, and nearly erased. But it still circulates among senior researchers. A tale of a man who actually saw SCP-096's face and lived. Dr. Elis Kettering was a Level 3 cognitive hazard specialist stationed at Site Redacted. He had spent months studying SCP-096's behavioral patterns, working with filtered imagery, distortion algorithms, and indirect observation techniques. But during a late-night calibration test, something went wrong. A corrupted file bypassed the visual scrambler. For less than a second, the full face of SCP-096 flashed across Dr. Kettering's monitor. He froze. His breath caught. Somewhere deep within the facility, alarms began to sound. The doctor knew what was coming. He had read the reports, he had seen the aftermath, and he knew he was only minutes, maybe seconds, before SCP-096 arrived. So he did the unthinkable. Using a scalpel from the emergency trauma kit, Dr. Kettering removed his own eyes. No anesthesia, no hesitation, just raw desperation in action. Security teams found him, unconscious, barely alive, slumped against the wall. His face soaked in blood, hands trembling. It turns out SCP-096 entered the lab. It stood over Kettering's body, breathing heavily, twitching. Then, for reasons no one understands, it sat down, covered its face, and began to weep. It didn't attack. It didn't scream. It simply stopped. Dr. Kettering survived. He was transferred to a secure psychiatric wing where he remains to this day, blind, broken, but alive. Some believe SCP-096 recognized that the viewer was no longer capable of seeing. Others think the act of self-mutilation disrupted the memetic trigger, but no one knows for sure, and no one has dared to test it again. The barracks incident. The night shift at Site Redacted was quiet, too quiet. The barracks were dimly lit, the hum of fluorescent lights blending with the low murmur of sleeping personnel. Security Officer Elis Munro sat at his desk, sipping lukewarm coffee, eyes rotating between monitors. Nothing unusual was seen. Just usual biometric readouts, hallway feeds, the occasional flicker of static from older cameras. He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. Another boring dead shift, he muttered to himself. But little did he know, he was so wrong. It was only a few minutes later that camera 12 in the hallway outside Containment Wing C flickered. Then it went black. Monroe put down his coffee, leaned forward, and started to tap the console. Come on, not again. He switched to the backup feed. Static. Then came a picture. For a split second, the screen showed something. A black smear on the wall. Like oil. Like rot. And then it was gone. At the same time, Corporal Jenna Ruiz was in the barracks hallway, returning from the mess hall, half asleep, a protein bar in her hand. She sensed something was off. She stopped. The air quickly became cold. Too cold. Her breath fogged in front of her. Then she heard it. Creaking, dragging, like metal bending, like something old waking up. She rounded the corner and froze. The wall ahead was decaying, or was it melting? She was unsure what exactly was happening. Paint peeled, concrete cracked, and then, from the center of it, something stepped out. A humanoid figure, tall, thin, its skin black and slick, like it had been soaking in oil for decades. The smell from it was rancid, smelling like long decaying flesh mixed with oil. Its face was sunken, its mouth twisted into a grin that didn't belong on anything human. It was SCP-106, the old man. Ruiz dropped her protein bar and started to back away slowly. At the same time, she whispered into her radio, "Control, this is Ruiz." She continued to back away. "We have a breach. I repeat, we have a..." The old man lunged at her. Monroe barely hit the breach alarm before being snatched up and vanishing. Red lights bathed the barracks in pulses of warning. Sirens wailed. Personnel scrambled from their bunks. Some armed themselves, others ran. But it was already too late. SCP-106 started moving through the walls like they were water. It didn't chase. It appeared, always ahead, always waiting. One by one, it took them into its twisted, decaying pocket dimension. A group of 6 security officers barricaded themselves into the armory. They could hear it, outside, dragging its feet, tapping on the walls. We need to hold until MTF arrives," an officer said, loading his rifle. "What if it comes through the floor?" someone whispered. They all looked down. The floor began to rot. When Mobile Task Force Epsilon 11 arrived, the barracks were silent. The walls were blackened. The air was thick with decay. They found 16 bodies and 5 missing. After sweeping the entire area, only one survivor was found. Corporal Ruiz, in the mess hall, alive but broken, somewhat decayed. She sat in the corner, rocking slowly, whispering, He's still here. He's in the walls. He's waiting." The incident was classified as a level 4 breach. Containment protocols for SCP-106 were revised. All personnel were required to undergo psychological screening. The entire barracks wing was sealed. No one was allowed to go there anymore. But sometimes, late at night, the new guards say they hear it when they pass that wing, dragging, grinding. Incident. In Redacted, a secure Foundation convoy was transporting SCP-173 to a newly constructed research facility. The goal? To study its behavior under advanced observation protocols. The route was classified. The escort, heavily armed. The precautions taken were extensive. But none of it ended up mattering. Somewhere along the remote stretch of highway, the lead vehicle lost contact. Moments later, the entire convoy vanished from Foundation tracking systems. By the time a response team arrived, the transport truck was overturned in a ditch. The containment chamber was open, and SCP-173 was gone. Within hours, the first reports began to surface. Emergency calls, mass disappearances, bodies found in homes, schools, hospitals, all with the same signature. Neck snapped, eyes wide open. The Foundation scrambled to contain the breach, but it was already too late. Over the next 48 hours, more than 10,000 civilians were confirmed dead. Entire neighborhoods were silenced. Security footage showed nothing but static. News outlets were flooded with rumors of a moving statue, but most of the footage was scrubbed before it could spread. Still, some fragments remain. A grainy video from a gas station shows a figure in the background, motionless, humanoid looking, facing the camera. The clerk blinks. The feed goes to static. The Foundation declared it a mass psychogenic event, a hallucination triggered by a chemical spill. But we know better. There were no survivors, officially at least. But in the hand of one of the victims, a young woman, found slumped against a wall in the school gymnasium. Investigators discovered a note clenched tightly between her fingers. It read, "If you're reading this, it means the statue got me. I cannot blink or he'll move. Tell the world what happened here." The note was smeared with blood, the handwriting shaky. The final word trailed off mid-stroke. The Foundation classified the incident as Event 173-CivX. All records sealed, all witnesses silenced, all evidence erased. But the note remains, a whisper from the dead, a warning to the living. The mall incident. The mall was a skeleton of its former self. Glass shattered, neon signs flickering. The air smelled of mold and rust. Eli and Marcus crept through the main atrium, flashlights cutting through the dark. Marcus whispered, "Why would the Foundation keep something here?" Eli replied, "Not keep, lose. This place was shut down after a breach." They reached the sublevel stairwell, and there it was, SCP-173. Facing the wall, still, silent, the lights flickered. Snap, it was facing them now. Eli gasped, "Don't blink. We take turns. One watches, one moves." They began a slow, synchronized retreat. One always staring, the other scanning for anything useful. Marcus kept his eyes locked on SCP-173, while Eli backed into a shattered beauty store. He found a cracked vanity mirror, yanked it from the wall, and returned. They propped it up in front of the statue. Eli whispered, "If it sees itself, maybe it'll freeze." For a moment, it paused. Then the mirror shattered with a sharp crack. Snap! Now it was closer. They shuffled backward into the arcade, switching roles, switching turns. Eli now watched. Marcus sprinted to a dusty photo booth, printed a strip of wide-eyed faces that taped them to a nearby wall. SCP-173 paused. 2 seconds. 3. Snap! The photos fluttered to the floor. Marcus kept watch. Eli dragged a life-size cardboard cutout of a model from a clothing store. They positioned it in the hallway, facing SCP-173. It worked. Or so it appeared. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. And then suddenly, snap! The cutout's head was gone. SCP-173 was inches closer. They stumbled into the mall's old security office. Eyes bloodshot now, breathing ragged. Eli stared. Marcus searched. The monitors flickered. One showed SCP-173 standing just outside the door. Marcus whispered, "My eyes! I can't! I need to blink!" Eli snapped, "Don't you dare blink!" They took turns. One watching, one blinking, one searching, one hoping. But that time was running out. Their eyes were getting tired, and you could only alternate between two people for so long. But then it happened. It was Marcus's turn, and Marcus blinked. He was gone. Eli screamed, backed into a corner, flashlight trembling. He stared and stared and stared until his knees buckled. His vision blurs. Finally, a blink. Unauthorized civilian breach at Complex Mall redacted. 2 fatalities. SCP-173 recontained was heard from a radio in the distance. Surveillance footage corrupted. Incident must be classified. The Site-19 breach incident. It was supposed to be a routine maintenance check. The chamber itself was reinforced with concrete cell, 6 meters by 6 meters, with a single observation window and a steel access door. 3 guards, 1 researcher, 1 statue. At exactly 11:25 a.m., the overhead lights flickered, then became dark, just for a second. But that second was long enough. When they came back on, Guard Alvarez was already down, neck twisted 180 degrees, eyes wide in frozen terror. The breach alarm triggered immediately. Red strobes bathed the corridor in pulses of warning light. The others screamed, weapons raised, trying to maintain eye contact with SCP-173. But panic is a predator of its own. One blinked, then the other, then silence. By the time backup arrived, the room was still. 4 bodies, and SCP-173 standing exactly where it started. Unmoved, untouched, unchanged. Containment protocols have been revised since. All personnel assigned to SCP-173 are now required to undergo weekly psychological evaluations, and the lights in Chamber 173A have been replaced with redundant triple backup system. Still, no one volunteers for that shift anymore. The catacombs beneath Paris incident. Beneath the City of Lights lies a city of bones. The Paris catacombs stretch for miles, a maze of skulls, silence, and secrets. Urban explorers reported hearing footsteps and whispers in Latin. One survivor described a figure in black, standing motionless in the dark, whispering, "Falsatis malade," which means you are sick. Their footage ends with a scream and the sound of metal scraping stone. In order to try to contain him, the Foundation sealed the entrance. Some say the doctor still walks those tunnels, searching for the infected. Site 11, the Whispering Ward incident. In Site 11, a psychiatric wing was shut down after patients began whispering in unison, in Latin. Security footage showed no intruder, but one patient drew a perfect sketch of SCP-49's mask, despite never being exposed to Foundation files. Shortly after, all the other patients also began making similar drawings. The ward was sealed, the whispers stopped, but the drawings continued, etched into the walls by unseen hands. Containment breach. Site redacted. It was a normal day. The halls of Site redacted buzzed with quiet routine. Researchers were on break. Security teams running their normal drills. Cafeteria chatter echoed through the halls. SCP-682 was secured in its reinforced containment chamber, sedated, monitored, and still. Then, at 13:42, the alarms began. At first, no one reacted. No one panicked. Personnel assumed it was a simulacrum drill, a routine test of emergency protocol. They continued to converse, some even laughing, finishing their coffee before heading to their stations. But then, the lights flickered, the ground shook, and the intercom crackled with a voice and a message no one wanted to hear. Containment breach. SCP-682 has escaped. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. Chaos erupted. Researchers scrambled for the security bunkers. Guards armed themselves and sealed off corridors. Automated turrets activated. Blast doors slammed shut. But it wasn't enough. SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, tore through the facility like a living storm. Its claws shredded steel, its acidic blood melted reinforced walls. It moved with terrifying speed, adapting to every obstacle, every defense. Security footage showed it ripping through a containment wing, dragging personnel into the dark, screams echoing through the comms. Then, silence. In just 30 minutes, over 117 personnel were confirmed dead. Entire wings of the facility were reduced to rubble. The air was thick with blood, smoke, and the stench of burning metal. Mobile task forces were deployed, but quickly wiped out. D-class personnel were released. As a distraction, it didn't work. SCP-682 seemed unstoppable. At 1417, with no options left, the site director authorized a desperate measure. SCP-079, the sentient AI, was allowed to interface with SCP-682. The two anomalies communicated for exactly 43 seconds. Their communications are classified, but witnesses reported SCP-682 froze. Its body twitched, its eyes rolled back. Then, without any warning, it calmed, it turned around, and it returned to its chamber. Some believe SCP-079 manipulated 682's neural patterns, disrupting its aggressive tendencies. Others claim the AI threatened it with something worse than death. A few even suggest they came to an agreement. No one knows for sure what took place. The logs of this incident were sealed, footage erased, and the survivors were silenced. One thing's for certain: the survivors, SCP-682 let them live. He could have done whatever he wanted, and no one could have stopped him. And that terrifies the Secure, Contain, Protect Foundation more than anything else. The lake incident. Daniel and Marissa Carter, both in their early 30s, had just tied the knot 2 weeks earlier. To escape the noise of the city and the chaos of all their wedding planning and dealing with family afterwards, they rented a secluded cabin near Black Pine Lake, nestled deep in the mountains. It was supposed to be peaceful. No phones, no traffic, just the sound of water, wind, and each other. They brought a pistol, just in case of bears, and a can of bear spray. Daniel joked as they began to unpack. Worst case, I'll just yell at it, throw some stuff. That's what they say, right? Be intimidating. What they didn't know was something was already watching them from the trees. The next day, it started as normal. Birds chirping, birds even singing. Then, the singing abruptly stopped. Then came the smell, like rotting meat and sulfur. Very far in the distance, Marissa noticed something weird, standing on the dock. Oh, what is that smell? It's like something's dead, but I don't even think something dead smells this bad. Then moved out of sight. But what they could tell is it was massive. Maybe it's like an alligator or something. Maybe we'll just be kind of close. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. We'll just watch for it. If something smells dead, we'll leave the area. That night, they heard something moving through the woods. Heavy, deliberate, branches snapping like matchsticks and rumbling as if shaking the entire mountain. Daniel stepped outside with a flashlight and the pistol. The beam caught something far in the distance, just for a second. It had scales, claws, eyes that glowed like dying stars. It was watching them, and then moved out of sight, and then continued to watch, and then moved again. That night, they didn't sleep. They packed what they could and left at dawn, hiking down the trail in the opposite direction toward the ranger station. But the trail was gone, as something obliterated the entire path. Trees fallen all over, where the path was completely undistinguishable. and then they heard a low, guttural growl, followed by something massive crashing through the forest. They ran, but it gained ground, so Daniel emptied his entire pistol into it. Bullets hit, but it did nothing. The creature didn't even flinch. Then it began to slow down, but it was so massive that it was still gaining ground. It was toying with them. It bent its head down, and Marissa took the opportunity to empty the can of bear mace directly into its face. It blinked, then it smiled. Then it reached out its claw very gently, knocking Marissa over. Then it stopped and just stared at her. They ran for almost 2 days straight. No sleep, no food, just fear. Every time they slowed down, they heard it, breathing, moving, but keeping a distance, continuing to toy with them. They tried hiding in a cave. It found them immediately. They crossed a lake on a canoe. It just walked right through like it was air. They were prey, and it was enjoying messing with them. Just before dawn, they stumbled onto a dirt road. At the end of it, a cabin. Smoke from the chimney. A light in the window. An old woman opened the door. Hearing the weird sounds and seeing the forest party, she didn't ask any questions. She just said, "Get in now!" They didn't argue. As they slammed the door behind, they heard it. SCP-682 snarled in the trees. The woman handed Daniel keys to an old pickup parked out back. "You guys take it! Drive! Don't stop! Don't look back! I'm staying here!" They did. They didn't even look back, but they heard sounds. Undoubtedly, it had crashed through the cabin, obliterating it. The Foundation arrived hours later. The cabin was gone. So was the woman. Deep claw marks were found in some of the trees and in the ground. And the lake, it was drained, completely empty. No fish, no birds, just silence. Daniel and Marissa were never the same. They knew the creature could have killed them at any time. They were its playthings, and they were helpless to stop it. The collector gets collected. In the fall of 2012, a private collector named Daniel Whitmore, a 43-year-old antique enthusiast from rural Oregon, attended an estate sale in a decaying Victorian home. Among the dusty furniture and the cracked porcelain, he found something that caught his eye. A life-sized female mannequin, vintage, with a cracked porcelain-like finish and faded makeup. Its eyes were glassy, too lifelike. Its joints were articulated in unnatural ways. Its mouth was slightly open, as if caught mid-sentence, and its hands delicate, but with fingernails painted a deep, flaking red. They were curled into a subtle, almost beckoning gesture. The tag read, "For sale, Model 847, Cherry Grove Display Company, 1952. Daniel first offered $70 for it, but after bargaining a bit, bought it for $75. He placed it in the corner of his home studio, where he restored and cataloged antiques. He thought it would be a great centerpiece. At first, it was just a feeling, a chill in the room, a sense of being watched. Daniel began documenting his collective process, sometimes with notes and sometimes with video, a habit he'd been developing for insurance and social media. He recorded daily logs, often speaking directly to the camera. Day 2. The mannequin's weird. I swear I left her facing the window, but now she's turned toward the door. Perhaps it's just me, though. He laughed it off. But the next morning, she was closer to his desk. That was unusual. Daniel set up motion-activated cameras in the studio. He wanted to catch whatever was happening, but every night, the footage showed nothing, just static. Or worse, A few seconds of black screen. Then the mannequin in a new position, as if it teleported. By day 5, she was standing at the foot of his bed. He didn't remember moving her. He didn't sleep that night. Here's where Daniel's logs became really erratic. I hear her moving. Not footsteps, more like just creaking, like wood bending. I unplugged the camera, but it doesn't matter. She's in my near dreams now too. Daniel stopped leaving the house. Neighbors reported seeing him pacing in front of windows, muttering to himself. Day 7, at 3:12 a.m., Daniel called 911. The transcript was brief but chilling. Daniel, she's in my head. Why is she inside my head? Dispatcher.
Sir, remain calm. Who are you talking about?
Daniel, I can't stop seeing her. She's smiling. Why is she smiling? She won't stop. When authorities arrived, they found the house in silence. The studio was trashed. Books torn all over. Mirrors shattered. Daniel's body was found in the hallway. Eyes gouged out. Fingernails torn off. His face frozen in a look of pure terror. And in the corner of the room, standing perfectly still, was the mannequin. SCP-847. Her head tilted slightly. Her lips curled into a faint, unnatural smile. Her hands outstretched, as if she had just let go of something. Probably Daniel. The mall incident. In 2017, a group of 4 urban explorers, 2 men and 2 women, broke into the long-abandoned, redacted mall. A sprawling complex sealed since the early 2000s. They planned to live stream the entire exploration for their growing online audience. The stream began as usual. Graffiti-covered walls, shattered skylights, the eerie silence of a place long forgotten. Then they found it. In the center of a ruined woman's clothing store, surrounded by toppled mannequins and broken glass, stood SCP-847. This wasn't your usual mannequin. It was female in form, but grotesquely exaggerated. Its proportions were asymmetrical, with certain features that appeared to be torn off and then crudely reattached. Instead of the normal plastic, its finish was a patchwork of plastic and synthetic flesh, with joints exposed, revealing metal rods and torn latex. Its face was even more terrifying. It looked like something out of a nightmare. A poorly molded approximation of femininity, with oversized lips, wide staring eyes. Its fingers were long, too long, ending in chipped, blood-red nails. It stood there, motionless, facing them. One of the explorers, a man named Tyler, laughed nervously. Hey, check this out, guys. I think I found my dream girl, right? Right, guys? He reached out to touch its hand. The live stream cut to static. Panicked, the group realized their connection was gone, but they weren't ready to leave empty-handed. They switched to offline recording, determined to capture everything and upload it later. That's when the mannequin moved. Not smoothly, not like a person. It twitched violently, like a puppet yanked by tangled strings. Its head twisted and snapped toward Tyler. Its jaw opened slightly, emitting a low, mechanical groan. Tyler screamed and stumbled back. The others froze. Then it moved again. Closer. They ran. It chased. They continued to run, down the corridor, past shattered storefronts and collapsed ceilings. Their flashlights flickered. The air grew thick, like breathing through wet cloth. Behind them, the sound of plastic limbs scraping tile echoed the halls. Every time they turned a corner and then looked back, SCP-847 was closer and still on the chase. Not walking, just appearing, always just out of reach, always watching, always grinning. Its movements were erratic. Its limbs bent the wrong way. Its head twitched with every step. That's when Tyler said, "Guys, let's split up. It can't chase us all." One by one, they split up. One of the women, Jenna, heard screams in the distance and decided to hide. 3 days later, mall security, responding to motion alerts, found one survivor. It was Jenna. She was curled in a fetal position beneath a collapsed escalator, dehydrated, catatonic. She never spoke again. Her eyes were wide open, unblinking, as if she was still watching something only she could see. The footage recovered from their cameras was corrupted, except for one frame, a single still image. SCP-847, standing in the center of the mall's atrium, head tilted, arms outstretched, smiling. The over-ambitious scientist. Dr. Elis Rend was new to the Foundation. Bright, ambitious, restless. He didn't want to spend years cataloging anomalous fungi or filling paperwork out on Euclid-class anomalies. He wanted recognition. He wanted promotion. He wanted power. And he thought he had found that in SCP-864. The object had been dormant for years. No activity, no exploration, just a rusted red sink, sealed in a reinforced chamber at Site Redacted. Dr. Wren submitted a request to study it. It was denied. So one night, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He waited until the early morning hours of the night shift, when minimal staff were examining the cameras and the guards were tired. He placed the cameras responsible for watching the hallway to the room holding SCP-864 on a loop. He entered the room, and then he turned on the faucet. Nothing appeared to happen. No hum, no vibration, no portal like he had read about. Just the sound of water swirling down the drain. Frustrated, Ren shut it off and left the chamber. He didn't notice the faint shimmer in the air behind him. He didn't hear the low, wet gurgle echoing from the pipes. He removed the looping from the camera and went on his way, disappointed. He thought it was a failure, but this was only the beginning. 30 minutes later, the first camera feed went dark. Then another, then all of them. Site Redacted's surveillance grid was overwhelmed with static. Not just visual, but auditory. A low, pulsing distortion, like breathing, but mechanical. Then came the screams. Security teams were scrambled throughout the halls. But the layout had changed. Corridors twisted. Doors leading to nowhere. Pipes burst from the walls like veins. And something was moving in the dark. It wasn't human. It wasn't even alive in the way that we understand life. It was something else. Something had come through SCP-864, or perhaps had always been inside it. Site Redacted was sealed within minutes. A full lockdown, no one in, no one out. For 48 hours, there was only silence. No communication, no movement, just the hum of the containment field and the flicker of emergency lights. When reinforcements arrived, they found the site in ruins. Every staff member inside was dead, not just killed, but dismembered. Torn apart with surgical precision. Limbs stacked, organs arranged in spirals, eyes placed in rows along the walls. And Dr. Elis Wren, gone. No body, no trace, no digital footprint. His name was erased from the personnel database. His quarters were empty, his research logs corrupted. Some say he went through the portal, realizing too late what he had done. Others believed he was never a scientist at all, but a camouflaged SCP sent to release the others. The truth is buried. The Foundation sealed SCP-864 permanently. All access revoked, all records classified. But some whisper that the footage still exists, hidden deep in the archives, locked behind clearance levels no one dares to access. Foundation Field Log, Site Redacted. During a routine containment operation, Mobile Task Force Epsilon 6 engaged SCP-6448 in a remote forested area near Site Redacted. The entity was observed standing motionless at the edge of a clearing, partially obscured by mist. Tranquilizer darts were deployed, but had no observable effect. Not Deer did not react to the impact, nor did it attempt to flee. Agent Harlan, who was positioned closest to the entity, made direct eye contact for approximately 3.4 seconds before being pulled back by a teammate. Immediately following the encounter, Agent Harlan reported auditory hallucinations, stating, "I can hear it breathing! I can hear it breathing!" Even in total silence. He was placed under observation and later requested Class C amnestics, a drug used to forget, which proved only partially effective. Over the following days, Agent Harlan experienced vivid, reoccurring dreams involving SCP-6448. In these dreams, the entity appeared in increasing familiar location, his childhood home, the Foundation mess hall, even his own bedroom. Always watching, always silent. He described the dreams as eerily lucid, often waking up drenched in sweat, with the sensation of antlers brushing against his skin. By day 5, Harlan exhibited signs of acute paranoia. He refused to be alone, covered all reflective surfaces in his quarters, and was found dismantling security cameras, claiming, It watches through the static. I know it does." He insisted SCP-6448 was no longer confined to the forest, but had followed him back and was waiting for something, waiting for maybe an opportunity. Security footage from outside Harlan's quarters on the night of day 6 showed a brief, unexplained distortion lasting 1.6 seconds, during which a tall, antlered silhouette appeared at the end of the hall. No physical evidence was found, and no other personnel reported sightings. After that, Agent Harlan was transferred to Site 17's psychiatric wing for long-term observation. His final recorded statement before sedation, "It doesn't need to speak. It's already inside. It's waiting on me to sleep again." He never woke up. The campground incident. Algonquin Provincial Park, Ontario. It was supposed to be a weekend getaway. 4 friends, 2 couples, set up camp deep in the woods of Algonquin Provincial Park, far from the main trails. They wanted quiet, solitude, a break from the noise of the city, from the hustle and bustle. So they pitched their tents near a small lake, surrounded by dense pine and birch. The air was crisp. Their fire crackled. Everything felt perfect. Until that second night. Then, that's when they saw it. Behind the tree line, a deer, pale, still, watching. At first, they thought it was just curious, but it didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stood there, its head slightly tilted, like it was listening. Then, it began to circle the camp, head still cocked to the side. They joked about it, at first, laughing to each other. Bro, look at this weird deer. What is it doing? But by the morning, the jokes stopped. The laughter stopped. Other campers nearby reported seeing the group wandering through the woods, barefoot, eyes wide, speaking in whispers. One witness said they were repeating the same phrase over and over. The eyes don't blink. Why don't they blink? Their movements were erratic. One of them was seen walking in circles for nearly an hour. Another was found standing knee-deep in the lake, staring at her reflection. When the Rangers arrived, the site was abandoned. The tents were torn apart, not by animals, but by something more deliberate, something that was clean, almost surgical. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle, just antlers carved into the trees, dozens of them, spiraling upward like symbols. The Secure, Contain, Protect Foundation was alerted. The area was sealed. The incident was blamed on a bear attack and extreme weather. But those who saw the footage, the deer that didn't blink, the campers who spoke in tongues, they know the truth. SCP-6448 doesn't need to touch you. It peers into your soul, and it takes you. And once it does, it never lets go. The highway encounter. Oregon. Route redacted. It was just past midnight on a foggy stretch of Route redacted in rural Oregon. A woman, 29-year-old Emily Hart, was driving home from a weekend trip. The road was empty. The forest pressed in on both sides. Her headlights cut through the mist like a blade. Then she saw it, a deer standing in the middle of the road, perfectly still, eyes glowing, not blinking. She swerved instinctively. The car veered off the road and crashed into a shallow ditch. The airbags deployed. The windshield cracked, but Emily survived. Around 40 minutes later, emergency services arrived. They found the car empty. No blood. No footprints. The highway surveillance footage shows Emily walking away from the crash, barefoot, silent, eyes wide. She walks for miles until she's out of range. It turns out she walked all the way to her home. When police visited her residence, they found her in a state of panic. She had boarded up the windows with wooden planks, covered every mirror, blocked every vent. She was pacing in the living room, muttering the same phrase over and over. It followed me home. The deer won't let me go. Emily was furiously scratching her arms, refusing to look outside, whispering, "It's still out there. It's waiting for me." The Foundation was contacted immediately. Emily was sedated and transferred to a secure observation wing at Site Redacted. Her home was quarantined, The crash site was quarantined. No deer was ever found, but the dashcam footage showed a deer. And the way it stood there, the way it turned its head, was enough to confirm it. SCP-6448 had made contact with another victim. Emily remains under Foundation care. She still refuses to face windows. She doesn't speak except for asking the same question every night before falling asleep. Did it find someone else yet?